we are.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Youth Forward Dialogue on the future of work for Ghanaian youth. I'd first of all like to apologize to you for starting late. This has been a result of technical challenges, and we hope that we can go through the rest of the event smoothly from now on. My name is Zayan Imoro, and I'll be your facilitator for today's event. Today is day one, and then tomorrow we'll continue with day two, focusing on the same issues that we'll be starting the discussion with today. A few housekeeping protocols. The washroom is to my left when you exit the auditorium. We're streaming live on Facebook and YouTube, so as much as possible, let's kindly limit the movements in the room because the cameras are strategically positioned in order to capture the event as it is happening. Also, we have access to the Wi-Fi, as you can see pasted at the back, and also just in front here. Alisa Hotels is the name of the Wi-Fi. When you click on it, a browser page will open up. That will give you an opportunity to enter in the voucher code. The voucher code is pasted on there as well. So any of you seated here that also wants to go online and interact, kindly feel free to do so. Summary of the structure of the program. We basically have two main sessions. That's in addition to the introductory session. The first is the panel discussion, where the panelists seated to my right will discuss the issue of future of work for Ghanaian youth. They'll focus on whether or not any type of job is a better or good job, and specific strategies that can prepare the youth for tomorrow's job opportunities. Then we'll conclude and go for lunch. The panel discussion will take about an hour and a half, and then we'll have an open forum. That's where we'll discuss some of the issues that have been started with during the panel discussion. Before then, we'll receive opening remarks from the Managing Director of Participatory Development Associates. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly help me welcome Mr. Edem Agbe.
Thank you very much, Zion, Youth Forward team, for putting this together. So my name is Edem Agbe. I'm the Managing Director, and also a member of the Youth Sector Engagement Group, where we work with industry players, policymakers, to ensure that the policy ecosystem is responsive to the needs of young people so that they can have access to decent economic opportunities and also jobs. This conversation on the future of work has been going on for some time now in various African countries and also in the development landscape. And I think it's a conversation that we must sustain until we get desired results. And because if we talk about Africa, for instance, being the youngest population, and the young people are either a dividend or a threat, and many a times people wonder what kind of threats do these young people pose. The happenings recently in Nigeria should tell us what young people can do in terms of when they become threats to the entire society, because they started issue on a protest on police brutality, but then as it continues, you realize that there were deep-seated underlying issues for these young people having to do with governance, access to economic opportunities, and jobs. So they were literally pouring their frustrations. And similar other things are going on in Ivory Coast, in Guinea, and even just Ghana here over the weekend. We saw what young people did because politicians started using them for what they always do. And we hope that young people will get access to decent economic opportunities so that they can be prepared for the future rather than to be used for political gains for the short term. And this conversation actually must be happening in the national and also the sub-national level, because you look at how the ecosystem is changing and you ask, with the advancement of technology, prepare the future of work and also make responsive decisions for programming. Because young people are not homogeneous, they are different categories, and we must consider that in programming. And it's only data that can help. Normative programming will not help, but it must be driven by data with market relevant skills so that they can be prepared. But then I look forward to the conversation because is any job a better job? And we look at how our panelists will explore this, the conversations both in studio and also online participants would also contribute to that. So I want to say that I look forward to this, and then I wish we all have a very great conversation, very live one, and the outcomes of this conversation will go ahead to inform programming at the national level and also as Africa region as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Kindly put your hands together for him. Okay. Just to go over the program one more time. If you look at the program outlines that you have, you'll see that after the opening statement, we'll have a documentary. This is a brief documentary, just about 15 minutes. The Youth Forward team went to the KJTR market in Kumasi to engage with a few youth on what the future of work is looking like for them specifically. We are hoping that this can be the beginning to guide our conversations here generally. So when the technical team is ready, kindly let me know. The lights in the auditorium will be dimmed, and then we'll run the video for the next 15 minutes. After the documentary plays, I'll hand over to Ethel, and then we'll begin the panel discussion. All right. Okay, you can. Yeah. I think the panelists can come and then sit down and watch the.
Pacha, we didn't the same.
I will see a boy.
Now I can see the age man now. Yeah.
Star bet a phone, so phone say the by the amount, Sunny Island.
Now, a juma we know see our hefasa.
Mission Master. Master, no so high, Anna. My perfect cacane, the maximum.
And see, say now what so, no, would also say, that she and find the same fear and no mucosi and fear do. Sign office business no a year.
By 5 years time, there business na kwenenim. And say there be an phones in updates. Phones there be updates ba. Say S5 for next year no 6 be ba. So as time goes on, yes also you swing no ma for account.
O sha de ne ma na ye be boa wa ma wetimi aye adwuma no say e be sesa no na so wetimi aye adwuma.
I'm like, what can say technology? So yeah, they are as time goes on, and no mess sano. A machine side, they have for us so and idea. Major amateur technology, na the year, na kasana. Machine for by ya the bay. So the be here and say, Benyan no my, I can't do any bit him there, and I drain it or that. Tina Cadiana, bit him there. Won't mean ya brown machine count. What I say.
Na machine ne akade na wo kano. Na no as I say esa wo sua nim de foforo ana wo school foforo ana sa wo ye dan na beboa mo atimi aye djuma no.
No man aye na bia na de be no be difa kakra bi. So wa obehu e be simple ama.
Na machine
cause o edjuma mu dada. Ana yesi machine foforo aba. machine first na AC by AC do my extending am na do see so obe hu na style be no style be use no style be limit na am na e kama so end dey normal.
Nti wo hwɛ daakye a ehu wo mu sei bia na adwuma ya yeye na ebedu daakye na nkɔfɔ kra repair phones bio ana wo rehye mu sɛ ebedu daakye still adwuma no bɛkɔ so a wo betimi ayɛ adwuma ebedu sɛ emfa ne sɛ in the next 10 years.
Say in the next 10 years ana some na okay what determine say obey phones na de bia no na be didi so obi phone answer ya unyeska so in the next 5 years 10 years na dey untimi nka say o phone say cause nipa kra say o expiry date o phone de o dey be say mistake baba be bo ho o de buy be ya juice ka and there any problem kra o dey a phone de bi be say o.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
What's your name?
I am Mene Divine.
Divine, what work are you doing at the moment?
At the moment, I am a mobile money vendor. Yeah.
But are you in school too?
Yeah, I'm in school. But it's because of this corona whole issue, that's why I'm home now.
Okay. So which school do you attend and what course are you studying?
I am a product of University for Development Studies, and I'm offering biochemistry as a program.
So which year are you in?
I'm now moving to level 300.
So what work do you want to do in future?
I want to be a pharmacist or a biochemical engineer.
Okay. So looking at the knowledge and skills you are acquiring in school at the moment, do you think it is preparing you enough for the future for you to become the pharmacist or the biochemical engineer you want to become?
Yeah, I'm 90% sure I'm on the right track in acquiring what I want to be in future. But then, as we proceed, there are some certain few issues that come up, and maybe something might happen to disrupt what I'm doing.
Can you tell me more about those things that can distract what you are doing?
Yeah, let's take we been on a break for now. For now, they've introduced this whole online learning and teaching, which isn't effective. And to the course I'm doing, pertaining the course I'm doing, we need a one-on-one interaction with the teacher, not a visual thing. And the knowledge we need to get, we aren't getting it from the visual program system. So I think that's one issue. And two, maybe it can be finances. Should in case fine, I'm proceeding then. My mom or my dad wake up today and tell me that, Divine, I don't have money for you to continue. It's another issue.
So are you hopeful that the future is bright and there are a lot more opportunities as a result of technology and other things? Or you think maybe it's not so bright and it will be challenging? What are your thoughts about the future? Tell me about it.
Well, since we are still in Ghana, then I can say the future is challenging because some people are so good in aspects they do, but then others who aren't capable or who aren't the perfect people to fit in those positions are given the chances to do whatever thing they are doing, and those who are capable or those who are able to do whatever thing they've been asked to do are being kept in the houses. That's a challenge.
Can you explain further why does that happen, that those who have the skills and are able to do not get the jobs?
Well, Ghana is a whole lot about people who you know and people who knows you. So should in case right now I don't know anybody being in a higher position and someone somewhere knows someone in a higher position, when we go, they will use familiarities. Oh, I know this person, I know his father, I know his dad. That one is a factor, right? Yeah.
What do you think, what are some of the things you think we should do which will help young people to find the kind of jobs they want to do in future?
Well, with that one, we need good labor skills in the country, because if the labor skills in the country is very few, then the jobs being created already wouldn't be well equipped to be used. And we, the young ones, well, everyone is desperate to work, but then we aren't given the chance. We aren't given the chance to do what we want to do. Yeah, it's a problem we face.
Osua said yeah, wobetumi design or software no so na wakɔ ama nkrɔfo nti me ho ne sɛ nneɛma bɛsesa akɔ digital, especially since yɛwɔ corona era mu ne ade nti nneɛma bɛsesa.
Now we are confident say the nneɛma ɛsesa kɔ yɛnim no in future skills na sɛ wɔn a wɔde yɛ wɔ adwuma no ɛbɛyɛ relevant for the future jobs.
There be me who ne sa denta me kan sa ne say no obi ani ho a ne job be secure ye den a neoma asesa no neoma bi beba abefrem na won so wo sesemu kakra enti said ye say ye ho no enye sa in the future but ebese no kakra but enye sa enti e wo ma me my adwen say e wo ma na ma transition kwa adwuma foforo mu sa kwesi say me do my retirement age.
So are you worried that there will be not much demand for your skills and your knowledge in the future?
Me ya oba nti me ho ne say eduru ba bia me ntimi nye adwuma we no say de me ye no enti na say ba say collect data me hwehwe enkrofo no makoye na bia me design questionnaire no ne ade me ho ne say o your bad dia opportunities near limited, especially in this field. Means drew age be na me hwe enkwada na me sa ye adwuma no enti me hu na say drew baby a me ntimi nya adwuma we say
ade anya betimi aya boa o even though we are ban no adwuma wo pesa wo ye da ache no betimi aya
say not there me hu na say the mo betimi aya boa me would have to do with education. Mo chere me say niema asesa say no e wom say fine yeah per gender equality and all that but me ko bibi say mo a e be boa me a chen say me ko say nti me no me prefer say nka mo be chere me say bibi say mo ukom a e be boa wa chen e kwan we na wonam so no ti mo ma me alternative livelihoods.
Well, you've heard from them. Interesting and diverse views from some youth in KJT there on what they think the future of work holds for them specifically. At this point, we'll move on to the panel discussion where Ethel Sewa Boatin, who is the Ghana coordinator for the Youth Forward Learning Initiative, will moderate this discussion for us. They'll look deeper into some of the issues that have already been raised here, the trends of technology and how some of these will impact different kinds of jobs and whether the future is actually virtual like most people have been thinking ever since COVID hit. Ethel, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Brian. We want to once again welcome our participants in-house and those online. We are grateful that you've taken some time to listen to us today. We are sorry that we couldn't start on time because we had some technical challenges. Today we'll be talking about the future of work and whether any job is a better job. Actually, over the next couple of days, as today and tomorrow, we'll be discussing the future of work. And one may ask, why worry about the future anyway? Because it's so uncertain, things change so fast. So how do we even predict what happens? But we believe that in as much as the future is uncertain, we can shape the future. And so in our conversations, what we're seeking to do is to ensure that we look at ways in which we can help create that future we want, where young people have equal access to equal opportunities for all, where we can have jobs that match our youth skill sets, where young people actually do jobs that they are protected, and then their rights are also protected, and they're able to be comfortable, their well-being is taken care of, and they are fine. We're looking at that kind of future, so that's what we'll be talking about. And this conversation is brought to you by the Youth Forward Learning Partnership. The Youth Forward Learning Partnership is led by Overseas Development Institutes in the UK and Participatory Development Associates in Ghana and Development Research and Training in Uganda. The Youth Forward Learning Partnership works across the Youth Forward Learning Initiative to develop evidence-informed understanding of the needs of people in Ghana, of young people in Ghana and Uganda, and how the Youth Forward Initiative program addresses these needs. So we have the Youth Forward Initiative, which is a program in partnership with the Mastercard Foundation, Overseas Development Institute, Global Communities Solidaridad, NCDA CLUSA, and GO. And it's been implemented both in Ghana and Uganda. And the focus is to link young people to quality employment to start their own businesses in the agri and construction industry. So there you have it. We are here with support from all our partners, the Mastercard Foundation, and we are grateful that we're able to have this conversation today. So to do this, I have a very great panel with me, and we'll be talking about how young people's expectation and their concerns for their professional work in future, and then the pathway to secure decent employment in future. And I am grateful that I am joined by 3 people to do this discussion or to have this conversation. And to my immediate left, we have Samson Kofi Adote. Samson is the manager for Alumni Engagement and Research Reporting at the African Institute of Mathematical Science. Samson, you're welcome.
Thank you, Eto.
We also have Dr. Nado Joadodu, who is a senior lecturer at the Regional Institute for Population Studies, University of Ghana. Dr. Joadodu, you are welcome.
Thank you, Ethel.
All right. And then last but not the least, we have Paul Opoku Nkrumah. Paul is an HR professional, and he is the Senior Business Solutions Officer of Just One Group of Companies. So,
thank you.
Yeah, we have a very great panel, and together we hope to unpack the issues surrounding young people and their work. So we all saw the video, and in the video you realize we have different young people at different stages of their life. We recall that we had Cecilia, who is a teacher in the private school, and because of COVID, basically she lost her job, and so she's been able to start something else. She's not thinking of even going back to teaching again. We also had a Kwesi who went through apprenticeship to learn a trade in repairing phones, and now he has started running his own business. And then also there was the young lady Lois, who is doing research and looking at the way things are changing. She's looking at ways to adapt to the changes that happen, as well as some issues on gender that affect even the kind of work we do. And then we had a whole lot in our video. So I would want us to also look at the stories that they shared with us. How does that even relate to the panel members, your own personal life and your experience, your journey as you started your own work to this path? You know, sometimes when you start working, all you want is a job. Any job. After school, you just want a job. Did that happen? How did your transition happen? We start with Samson.
Okay, thank you, Eto. So my journey is a very interesting one. I actually never thought I was going to talk about my journey anytime soon. But since I have to, I'm going to share. So I think for me, it actually started when I was about 12 years. My dad worked in the space of development, and so he worked in water, sanitation, and hygiene. And I used to follow him to work, like during the long vacation. I'd go sit in his office, try and figure out what he's doing. And one day, I happened to have followed him into his boss's office, and there was a problem. And his boss couldn't figure out something, and I found a solution to it. So that was when I think my first job actually happened. So then I remember his boss telling him, Mr. Adote, make sure you bring your son to work every day. So yeah, I had to work during my long vacations with the organization. It was really fun. Later on, I moved on to do other things, and
I would say that for me, work really meant being able to solve a problem. So I saw a lot of problems around me, and I was like, well, I wouldn't want to be a part of the problem. I want to be a part of the solution. So that helped me to, and even sort of shaped my interest in going into development, and I decided to study development studies in school. And I'm proud to say that I'm a PDA alumni. I did my national service with PDA. And so from there, and at PDA, I had very great opportunities to do things, and especially do things that were in my interest area, and transition into other employment opportunities to where I am today. And where I am today, I feel very excited about that opportunity, because it also helps me to help others shape their lives and also help them to find a pathway to prosperity. So in my current capacity, I work as an alumni engagement lead for a global network of research centers in academic excellence. And we are based in 10 locations, 6 in Africa and 4 out of Africa. And luckily for us, we have our global secretariat in Africa. So I work with the global secretariat, and I also work in research reporting. So in my current capacity, I also manage like a very large community of scientists. So think of experts in the field of STEM, and with a population of about close to 5,000 people. So it's a very interesting place to be, and you get to see people transition from research, from the lab space into like the actual workspace, and you get to see ideas right from conception to implementation, and it's a very beautiful experience.
All right, thank you so much, Samson. Dr. Georgiou, so tell us, your journey, was it something that was planned out, or how did it happen in terms of your work with you?
Okay, so my journey, I would really say, was never planned out this way. I grew up in a university community. I find myself still in a university community, but I would say that nothing of what I did when I was young. For example, I was a science student all through until finishing my undergraduate degree, and now I teach population studies. I'm a demographer. Not very much of what I really learned prepared me for my job, so much as it is the experiences and opportunities that I had growing up. To begin with, the last of 3. I have 2 older brothers. And so I had to stand up for myself, right, from when I was young. And throughout my education, basic education, I was always the outspoken one who would answer the questions, who would be the class prefect. Actually, I remember when I was in senior secondary school then, people used to call me Honampe Job. Because more or less, I don't see myself sitting down when there's something to be done. I don't see why I should have downtime. I want to use it. So anyway, for example, after senior secondary school, we happened to be one group of people who ended up staying home for 2 years. So there was a strike in the universities sometime in the 1990s, yes, mid-90s, and it dragged everything back. And so my group of students was the last group who stayed home for 2 years before entering university in Ghana. The first year of that, I taught at my former primary school. And I ended up teaching at that primary school, or getting that opportunity because I was involved in everything. So when I went and asked for a class assistant job, there were a few places available and I was given it. It wasn't because of who I knew, like one of the people in the video was saying. And then after that, I learned cake decorating and baking. And I went to an 8-week sewing school. And like I was saying, I was a science student. I had studied physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology. So this was not in my field, but it was just, and with all of these things, you gain skills, you gain all sorts of insights into things that make you stand up for yourself. Actually, let me start with a story even before that. When I was 9 years old in class 4, I grew up in Legon, non-Legon campus. My father was a lecturer, my mom worked in the university. And I said I wanted to learn to play the piano. And my father, a professor at that time, said, no problem. My teacher lived in Medina. And my teacher said he would take, it was a friend and I, he would take us to his home and give us the lessons after school. My dad was like, it's not a problem, but I'm not going to come to pick you up. So at age 9, I would walk with my friend from Reds all the way to Medina Market, sit in a trotro, and come to campus, and then walk from one end of campus to another. But all I'll say is that all of these things helped me to be who I am today, and I'm using them in my job. And so at the end of the day, what I would say is that it really is not so much about what those hard skills you learn so much as all the soft skills that you pick up along your journey. That's what helps to make you a better person, wherever you end up finding yourself later on. And yes.
All right, thank you. So we move to Paul. We've seen various issues about how the journey of you start work and you go there. In your journey towards the work, have you had an instance where you had a job that it started somewhere, but just as we said, is any job a better job where you felt okay? Sometimes even at the point of taking that job, it's good, but you go in there and then you realize it's not all that. In you sharing your journey, can you highlight on those aspects?
All right. I am like they are saying, sometimes the way you start, you might think that might lead you to your expectation. But along the line, things change. And unknowingly, with mine, I started family business. My dad went to coastal, like my family. So whilst I was part of it, I was like holding on to the administration of the stocks and sales and other stuff up to a point that I made it to just move to the next level. So I came to Ghana Telecom for our sourcing program, and I got to meet a couple of people along the line. So I was introduced to one center called Ghana Multimedia Incubator. They are into ICT incubation, like if someone have innovation, they come to the center, we give them a space to learn, and then we provide them the logistics. I was in the administration office whilst I was learning many other things. So we get to see what this one is doing, we provide support, move to the other. Then I had opportunity to supervise some mass recruitment by Teletech. By then, Vodafone has sold its call center to Teletech. So I was part of the center that was from ITES, that is an IT-enabled service. So I was the one from the center that was assigned to help the team. Some were from South Africa, some were from US and other places. So in the course of the duty, I was in charge of making sure people are seated, share their questionnaires or assessment forms to fill, and then also make sure that they are timed, and then I help them to also collect all the questionnaires for marking, and sometimes I do some of the entry of their scores, not knowing that I was speaking another, profession along the line. So after the mass recruitment, I was asked by the team, what role do I want to do? I think I was okay what I'm doing, so I can continue. So before the day closed, I had an appointment later in my hands as HR coordinator to start a role. So it was a new role. I started, and it's like over 400 employees, all of them coming to me here and there. They don't know what to do, but then I had to just learn on how to work on it, because the work is my hands. I didn't know what to do. Like the guy said, let the technology just move on. So while it's move on, you know your way out. So I was learning whilst struggling through. Then a system was introduced within the next 3 months to use an Oracle system to manage employee data, payroll, and other stuff. Wow, that was a big blow. By then there were a time that I had to sit overnight, because with them, they don't care about what it takes to accomplish a mission. You have to just do it. And then before the month ends, I have to make sure that I put all the things together for payroll to run. And this is employee data. Talk about date of birth, your name, and everything, up to every information that is required from employee. So, well, that was accomplished. And then work was ongoing. Then I later on find myself as HR person. Then I just apply another job, and I had it as HR officer for Alliance Waste. That's one of the subsidiaries for Jospon Group, that's Zone Lion. Then from then, they also introduced another system called ERP, that's Microsoft Navision Systems. And based on my previous experience, I was part of the team that was called from various subsidiaries to come and learn on the new software. Because of my previous experience, I also picked up among the team who have to help the other subsidiaries to have a successful implementation. Then I roll on. And after I was given an appointment to the head office to handle, as part of the team, to handle the ERP system. That's ended up my job as business solution officer. Then I grew up to become a senior business solution officer, implementing HR systems and supporting and helping. So it wasn't really designed the way I wanted to be. But as I strive, as technology changes, as we adapt, then it's also shaping your way out. So that's my journey a bit.
Okay. So you realize that from where our conversation is going, it's more of some opportunities that sometimes you may naturally meet, or sometimes you've got to create them or push your way through in order to have access to some of these opportunities. And so now I want us to move a bit into the technological changes. Because Paul, as you were talking, you talked about a lot of introductions, new technology coming up in your line of duties. Were you even trained in the HR profession, or you learned on the job? And how did you cope with the technological changes over time?
I was not trained. I wasn't HR. I did information studies, that's all. And then I ended up in HR. So it was quite a challenging and a new environment. But then I had to learn on the job. So my way of learning was that, okay, assignment per assignment. That was the way I learned. So you were asked to deliver specific tasks. Then I asked around, how do I go about it? Then it's, okay, do this, that. Sometimes you are not given a full formation. You may be given a piece of work, while the other one may complement with a bit. So at the end of the day, you know that, okay, this is my input, and this is how it has resulted with the entire accomplishment of the task. So I actually opened my mind to adapt and then learn, and also keep asking and seeking information. So a job that maybe a professional might have taken, let's say, a day to accomplish, I do ensure it whether I should continue. If I don't get a feedback, if something else, I continue. So that is how bits and pieces I put together to be able to develop myself to this extent.
All right, thank you. So I want us to talk about something about skills and education. In our current situation where there's a widespread emergence of educated but unemployed young people or underemployed young people, do we think that, does education and skills make a difference in terms of jobs currently and then also in the future? I would like to start with Dr. Dodo.
Your education and skills do make a difference, but I would say that they make not that much of a difference. I think that you need the education, you need those skills as a starting point. But to be successful wherever it is you find yourself, it takes a whole lot more than just that classroom work or that book knowledge that you learned. Because, for example, when Paul was speaking, for instance, he was telling us about all the things that he had to learn on the job. And if your mindset is that I didn't learn this thing in class, or I learned it but I didn't learn it that well, you really will probably not be able to use even those skills that you have learned, as it were. So they do play a part, but you also need to put in a lot more and be open-minded and apply yourself.
Something, your take on that?
So I'm just going to build up from the point Dr. Dodu made. And so one of the things I keep emphasizing is there's a huge difference between schooling and education. Most often, what we describe as education is schooling. And so we are more interested in acquiring certificates, and you attend a workshop and participants always want certificates. And I'm like, what are you using these certificates for, right? I mean, I have a pile of certificates at home, and these days I'm actually not interested in getting any more because I'm like, okay, every workshop there's a certificate. That's great. So, to my point, education is extremely important. Why is it so? Because education provides you with an avenue to build what I call cultural intelligence. Cultural intelligence is simply emotional intelligence and social intelligence. Now, in today's world, and 5 years from now, if you're not culturally intelligent, you cannot fit in the workplace. Okay? In my experience, I have had to recruit a number of people for different positions. Whenever I'm recruiting people for positions, I don't check their certificates. The first thing I check is, does this person have the skill set? And then I look at, in determining if the person has a skill set, I look at their experience. So I've had, there was one time I was recruiting someone, and she had a construction and surveying background, right? But the job had nothing to do with construction and surveying. And knowing perfectly well that I also came from a system such as that. So I studied development studies, like I did say. And I work in the field of science and research, right? These two do not correlate in any way, but then that's where I find myself. So education is extremely important, skills is extremely important, but the huge question is, often industry does not actually know what they want in terms of the kind of skills they want their students to, or the people coming into the work environment. They always complain, oh, there's a skills gap, you guys are not teaching them the things they need to know for the work environment. But if you ask them, what skill are you looking for? The answer is so simple. They will tell you, I need someone to get a job done. Simple. And you can only get the job done if you're culturally intelligent.
Okay, Samson, so what is this cultural intelligence and how can one build it?
So I'll give you a good framework. When you go to school, you have clubs, right? Like most of these universities, institutions have clubs, associations, and whatnot. Now, if you take, for instance, if I'm studying political science, most likely I would be put into groups, okay? In my groups, I'll be required to make presentations, group assignments, and all these things. Now, bear in mind that when you're going into the university, you don't go into the university with the same person from your tribe, okay? You'd find Akans, you'd find Germans, you'd find South Africans, Nigerians, and that is, so basically the university or the education system sector is a melting point where you find different people from diverse backgrounds. So the first thing you do in working with these groups is you have to build a rhythm, a workflow, understand each other, collaborate, know how to settle your differences and many other things. And at the end of the day, the idea is to get the job done. What's the job? Put together a presentation and deliver it as part of the requirements for the course. Okay, so cultural intelligence is the summation of emotional intelligence and social intelligence. Emotional intelligence is knowing that, okay, this person and I do not agree on this subject matter, but I'm not going to jump and say, oh, I'm going to beat him up, I'm going to, Yeah. Social intelligence is knowing that, okay, this is what is required in this social setting. This is how you approach people when you want information. So by putting these two together, you acquire the skills that you actually need to get the job done.
All right. Thank you. Dr. Dodu.
If I can just come in quickly here to give an example to support what Samson just said. So, for example, I told you I was a science student when I was up to my undergraduate level. I would say that I have gotten to a lot more places and gotten a lot more opportunities, not by saying what my credentials and degrees are, but by saying, number one, that I was a junior small room president when I was in the University of Ghana, because I was, and actually part of it was that we kicked out the SRC president during my tenure. And then also by saying that I was voted the most, what was it even called? The most industrious, not industrious, but the most, now I forget the word. The most resourceful person in my undergraduate class. And I've gotten a lot more to a lot more places by those two than by quoting my degrees and my class. And those kinds of things is what he's talking about.
All right, Paul.
Yeah.
So you realize when it comes to the education and the skills, yes, it's important. You need a certificate, you have to go to school. But as you go to school, you need to deliberately acquire more than just your certificate. As in building that relationship with your classmates and other people in the community that you have, you find yourself in. And then also being culturally and socially intelligent, as with how you even live with people. Now, we want to look at the skill set again because it keeps coming up in our conversation. Is the current skill set of young people useful for the future? Given that everything is changing. We woke up one fine day in, I think, March, and suddenly coronavirus. I haven't returned to work since then. Things change rapidly. We never planned to be working from home. We never saw this coming, but suddenly everything is online. Everyone is having Zoom meeting, everyone is meeting, church meeting is on Zoom, everything is online. And we had to just change suddenly in order to fit in. With regards to young people,
Yes.
do they have what it takes to fit into the future, even as we project as to what could happen in the future?
Yeah, I would say yes. Young people are quite people who are quite laudable in terms of thinking and imagination. Every innovations are usually, come to being by not just like deadly people. The thing is that they may sought some kind of insights and experience from people who have actually lived it. But how to make it happen is actually centered around young people. Now, we interview about 3 people. I just want to just bring it to that. And when you listen to them, all of them have what ideally they are doing. And they also suggested the next alternative if things changes. So for us to be able to, just be able to go with the current trends of changes that are going on. Now it is COVID. Nobody knows what happens tomorrow. But whatever fear that we may entertain, we still have to really stay up to task. Now, first of all, you need to have something to do before you can look at what to do next. So a teacher alternatively is selling dresses. And now she has found a new trade that she's not even thinking of going back because she's experiencing something new. Now, notwithstanding, we're talking about technology here. Technology also has become more useful than when she was even in classroom. She's using WhatsApp, Twitter, and what have you to share a kind of dresses, and people are seeing and buying. To your surprise, she might make some kind of sales better than what she is even selling at the present shop. Now, the guy with the technology who is actually doing the mobile phone is like, okay, we will need a tool to move to the next level. Every year he's expecting a change, so he also anticipates what is coming next. And he's saying that once I have the pre-knowledge, I can just move faster with the next one, I can catch up. So you cannot move to the next level if you are idle. That's the key word. Anybody who wants to get something to do, or who aspires to be someone or to be somebody else, first of all, you have to find something to do. What you do will expose you to something different, and that different thing will really bring out the best in you, and you'll move to the next level. And then the the lady who is a research assistant brought about the gender issue. She's saying that, okay, I'm a woman. I think I cannot continue to do what I'm doing every time. Now, the key thing is she has something she's doing currently, which she's happily doing it. Day by day, maybe she's married, time constraints, she may have a, give birth. Even if she's pregnant and she can work, when she gives birth, there have to be a break. So alternatively, she's saying that, okay, I'll get some people around my community and train them for them to collect the data. So I will design a questionnaire. Design a questionnaire might not need you to really move around. Probably the next level is like she might think to even adopt certain technology where even the individuals that she goes to collect data can just send in information straight away, and that will hit the data that she needs. So a time will come that people that she needs to even contract may not be available. What next? So that's a solution. So I believe whatever we may find yourself, or whether you're a man or a woman, first of all, get something doing. Don't be afraid of what you are about to, encounter. All right? Move, seek opinion, and then you find something else. So okay. That is my key.
Thank you. And so still on current, the skill set of young people as we move into the future. Dr. and something, do you have something to add to it?
I do have a lot to add to it.
Okay, then we'll start with you, Dr.
So I think for me, what I would say is, in terms of information technology and young people, not just young people, for a very long time, almost all generations have been consumers of technology. Today, we take our phones, like, honestly, most of us don't even read the manuals that comes with our phones, right? We feel like we are too intelligent to know how to use our phones. And then we figure out that, oh, actually my phone has this functionality, and I didn't know, and you've been using the phone for a year. So imagine, like, I figured recently that my phone has something called Google Lens. So all I need to do is point it at something, and it's going to give me all the information that I need, right? So I'm like, oh, what happened? How come I didn't find this earlier? It would have really been useful to me. So I think that as young people, and as young people especially, because the generation born before the computer, they are quite slow to adapt. So for young people, we need to start thinking beyond just being consumers of technology, right? So how do we do that? There are so many open source software, so many open source applications that we can spend between 4 to 6 months to, get to know and try to be active participants in the space of open source. The other thing I also wanted to say is that young people have a lot to offer. How? They have really amazing creative thinking prowess that I have never come across. You look at the protest in Nigeria, for instance, how they were able to quickly, rapidly put together a structure and a system to support people protesting is amazing, right? Like, we've never seen anything of such, like, on the continent, where you'd find people pulling resources together. Luckily, I know, like, 1 or 2 people who were on the front lines providing some form of support to people who were protesting. But at the end of the day, they've shown us that we have a lot to offer, and we need to start tapping into our creative thinking skills. Most often, you find a young person who might be unemployed and staying, like, at home, and this guy or this lady has, like, tons of amazing ideas in their head. And often it's just what they need is, something to spark their imagination, and they start to move. And we've seen people, like, if you even listen and follow the narratives in Nigeria, for instance, let me use that as an example because it's the most topical issue at the moment. You realize that, you realize that a lot of people are not earning so much. They do not find themselves in a formalized economy. However, they are able to put food on their tables at the end of the day. How are they able to do that? They tapped into their creative thinking capacity. And so I think that's what I want to add.
Okay.
Okay, so very briefly, two things I'll say. The first is that I think that for some of us parents, and I'm speaking as a parent right now, I have 3 young girls, daughters. I think that we are not allowing our kids to grow up to develop these creative thinking abilities enough. And so that is one thing that we need to look at as a generation. And so for those of us in the urban areas who are so-called elitists, we might be shooting our kids in the foot because we are not letting them think and grow up for themselves. The other side of the coin is that as a country, I think that we are also really leaving behind a lot of young people who don't have those basic, even reading, writing, arithmetic skills that will give them what it takes to do things for themselves and change for themselves. And that our educational system really needs to go beyond just learning things by rote to teaching children to think and to, to solve problems. Because that is where we need to go. That will give young people that kind of mindset to learn the skills and have those things that will move them forward.
All right, thank you. If you're joining us online, remember to share your comments, your questions, and at the right time, we will forward them up to the panel too. And you can also contribute to the discussion. We want you to be actively involved in our conversation, so please drop your comments there. So, Paul, earlier you were talking about the fact that if we are talking about whether the current skill set is even enough for the future, we should first of all look at, you should be doing something before you even would want to anticipate what will happen in the future.
Yeah.
If you are unemployed or if you are not doing anything at the moment, then you will not even think about what you would do in the future. So that leads us to our next theme to talk about.
Right.
How do young people find something to do? Because we all know that unemployment is such a huge challenge for most young people, and some are struggling, some are out of school, some are also out of their jobs. Even in this COVID season, there are a lot of people that have lost their jobs. So how do young people even start and even, try to find something to do in the first place before we even think about the future and what may happen or may not even happen?
All right. So first of all, there must be a self-drive for every youth. What I'm saying is that you need to actually seek for something before you can have it. Nothing will come automatically. Even if your family or your parents owns business, they won't automatically bring you in to come and start job. They will feed you, you will live in better life, they can provide you what you want. But for them to give you a role, it is your ability really to demonstrate what you can do. So, let me bring you to the work settings, for example. We may want to be in better positions, but where does it start from? Not all of us will have opportunity to do attachment or any internship from any organization. I remember some time back when I was looking for a job and I wasn't finding it. I decided to now go for courses where I wouldn't pay. By so doing, it's a kind of engaging you to really be busy, and no one knows who you meet. So that was my mindset then. There was one resources I attended, and I picked one thing from it, and that is the most important thing that really helped me in my career development. So they were saying is that what I picked from there is anything that you're looking for is nowhere but it's just around you. And the person who will help you the next level is the one just near to you. And I picked it. So when I came home, this thing dawned on me seriously. Okay, So I started to look around in my hood, what can I do, and blah, blah, blah. Then, due to the course I was having and then some people I met, I just had to go to one person who recognized me in a certain way. So I said, okay, I'm currently done. I'm not doing anything much. And I know this is a resource center. You train, you help these people. So I just want to come here every day. When they're having a training, I'll come and on the computer. So I defined this job too, because I used the center and I saw what others were doing. So I said, I can do it. And then I'll say, okay, I didn't really get a straight answer, but then I made the place my workplace. Now, excuse me for this one, it's quite inconvenient, but we have to manage it. So, by so doing, I was living at Dansoman. It took me like one car to get to High Street, Ghana House. And our office was the last floor, 6th floor, Ghana House, next to Barclays, if you know this. This center, we are occupying the whole floor. We have about 3 labs. And then we have about 5 incubations that are occupied. Some were in education, some were developing education software. Some were doing security systems. Some were doing other softwares, I think, that handles other things. So, at the point that I think I am idle, I go to one of them, okay, if we are going somewhere, I want to join you. Okay. Before I realize I'm out here, they are fixing CCTV, I'm learning how to do it, tracking, and then I'm learning, small. And I wasn't paid. Now, a time came that National Youth Employment came up. Okay. So, the people who were trained to work in the district office require certain kind of skills and preparation before they start. So I was part of the team that was supposed to handle some of the training. So what I was doing is that I just have to prepare them the office space and then stay by whilst they are all learning. Then that was somewhere 2008, thereabout. So what I pick from them is like day to day, I learn what they are also learning. I also learning what the trainers were also learning, and I wasn't paid. So up and down. Then a time came, I said, Paul, can you handle the data training, like how to train people to capture, or how do you call keyboard skills? I said, yes, I can do it. So you know what? This job took me to all the regions in Ghana, because what's happening is that we have other people who are handling certain aspect of training, and I was handling only typing. So use ATI, Mavis, and I have to instruct the class until the last 2 days that they take other formal trainings along the line. And I had paid. Then someone also developed a software for electoral commission where they were doing the data capture. Then I was asked, can you do this? I said, yes, I can. You know, I was on the UN ticket for some of these trips to train all these data capture people for about 3 consecutive times on every election year. Then I had another paid job until I was assigned on the role to be HR, and then this is where I am now. So nothing comes easily. First of all, prepare yourself that you don't want to be idle. You may have an ideal plan on what to do, but you might not have it easily. But even if it's someone's job, just help. Okay? So sometimes people come to me, okay, let me see your CV. It's like I completed school, I waited out to national services. So none of your family members operate like a shop? I said, oh, my mom, so can you give me a little experience if you have had a chance to work with your mom or your uncle or whatever? Now you see that they have a lot of things that they don't even know that they are relevant at any time for really to tell a story about your experience. So every piece of work you find is important. Make sure that you have to catalog them, what it takes to do one after the other. Then you have a job.
All right. So in sharing your example, you talked about the time where you have to just go and put on computers. As at that time, I believe you saw your bosses. Maybe they drove nice cars. You were hosting programs, and as a young person, when you start, you see a lot of prospects. It's good. I mean, it encourages you to work hard towards the future. But there are times that it also makes you feel, okay, so where I find myself, how do I even get there, or when do I get there? Because earlier on we received questions from people that they wanted us to discuss here.
Yeah.
And for most of the questions we received, the focus was, how do I find a good job right after national service or right after school? How do I find my dream job right after school? So it shows that for most young people, we have a dream or a plan of an ideal situation or a kind of job that we want to do in the future. And that is what we want to work towards. And for some people, it's either that job or no job. What do you tell them for me, Paul? Because they are asking what measures can be put in place to ensure that they secure a job right after school. You do graduation, the next day your job is ready, your car is ready, everything is ready, you move into your apartment.
Very interesting.
Yes.
I think your education and maybe the national service that you have would definitely will not land you on a dream job. Now I'm given a pickup by my company. I'm full, maintenance is not my cost. So if you see me riding, I'm using AC. Maybe it's not from my pocket. If you see me in a certain situation, maybe it's not coming from me. And that is what every youth is aspired to be. You see them driving good cars, you see them. It might not even be their money, but that is how much they are worth. I think if I give myself a chance to talk more, I'll even venture on job dynamics, like what makes up a job. But I will limit it now, maybe in the conversation. I will let us know, if you bring about job specifications, we have 2 lines where you can talk about the job requirements. When you come to job, you do A, B, C, D. And then we come to the next level, which will prepare you to what level. So that maybe you do the same job, but if you are on level A or notch A, you earn this, you have this benefit and that. Now, it starts somewhere. It will never come the same way that you wish it will be. So you better discipline yourself and begin from somewhere. Okay. A little thing. So all you need is for your survival when you start. So every job or any job is a better job, right?
Yes.
It is for your survival from the start. But as you progress, you get better. So that is what I'll say to it.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We go to something. We're talking about finding something to do and the challenges that young people face in finding something to do. And even when you've found something to do, sometimes the temptation not to be satisfied with what you find to do, because of course you want to dream big. We've been taught to dream big. And sometimes you want it to happen now. So tell us, in terms of the challenges young people face in finding something to do, because we talked about finding something to do before you even anticipate what will happen in the future, and you prepare yourself for that in the future. So what are your thoughts in terms of how do young people even find something to do?
So I would say that money is good, right? We all agree to it. Money is good. We all want to drive in our dream cars. We want to live in our dream houses at the dream locations, go for that dream vacation, have that dream wife and dream children or dream husband. But all these things do not happen at a snap of a finger, right? And I think that a lot of us as young people, because I'm also young, we need to be very realistic with ourselves. Yeah. I visited my aunt and husband, and she was like, oh, when they were starting life, they were saving 50 Ghana cedis a month from their income, right? And over the years, they were able to increase their savings and all that. Most of the time, and today's economy is very easy for you to run into debt. You have someone earning 2,000 Ghana cedis, but the expenditure at the end of the month is 5,000 Ghana cedis. And yeah, overdraft, minus 3,000. How do you fix that? So you need to, we need to build that discipline and appreciate the fact that everything takes time. There used to be this billboard around town a lot back in the day. It says, little drops of water make a mighty ocean. I forgot which campaign it was, but it used to be very popular, and I used to see it in town. So I always think, anytime I'm tempted to want to try to live above my means, I ask myself, I think of that billboard, and I'm like, hey, we have to start somewhere, because we are from somewhere. So that is the first point. The second thing is a mindset thing, and I think for a very long time, we have been conditioned to think formal, informal. Informal is bad, formal is great, right? We need to move away from those classifications of formal and informal sector. And I think that's one of the challenges why we are not, the tax net is actually burdened on the formal sector. Because for a very long time, we think of informal money as useless money, right? So we need to move away from that thinking, or that classification of formal, informal, to something that I'm yet to figure a name for it, but I have a few ideas. What are the ideas? We have something called the gig economy. The gig economy is where you do your side hustle, and you have a main thing, but you have side hustles, right? There's something called the blue economy, where you think about the oceans and all that, so you're thinking of fishermen, right? We have something called the green economy, where you think about agriculture and all those things. We have something called the digital economy, where you're thinking about technology. These are the kind of classifications we now have to model our society after. Because once we model our society after these classifications, it's easier to tax people. So 100% tax payment by everybody, you get it. Once that happens, you have enough money to be able to say you are providing social services, thereby reducing the unemployment rate. Because you wouldn't now see informal sector as non-relevant, because that informal sector that you use not to respect falls under the gig economy, falls under the blue economy, falls under the digital economy, and all the types of economies. So once we are able to address that, we now start to change people's mindsets towards even appreciating the likes of TVET the more, right? Yeah. Nobody wants to be a plumber today, but we need plumbers. No one wants to be a carpenter today, but we need carpenters. No one wants to be a tiler today, but we need tilers, right? If we start thinking that I can actually be a manager and be a tiler, it would go a long way to help people, right? But if you start thinking I'm a manager, so me, I cannot be a plumber and be servicing someone's house, or I cannot be a tiler and be servicing someone's house. That's when we are going to have a lot of challenges. And then that dream life that you want, that dream apartment that you want, dream car, it's not going to happen. It might happen, but it might be on your retirement. That's if you are lucky to plan your life well enough, right? So I think that the challenges, they are both structural and also behavioral. And the behavioral element is around how we perceive these occupations and the kind of classifications. And the structural issues are more about governance. And I think we can talk about agile governance in the future, but as it is, there's a lot of work we need to do around that.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Dodo, you are a lecturer, so I know you interact with a lot of students. We are looking at school to work transition, where young people go through training, they acquire education, they acquire skills, and then afterwards the next thing is to go look for a job with the education that you have acquired. How do young people even find jobs? And with this, I want you to take it from even when they are in school. How do they position themselves to prepare themselves well so that by the time they are out of school and they are on the job market, the transition becomes smooth for them.
Okay, thank you, Ethel. So I think that's a really good question, and where you started from is exactly where I'll start from. So, like you said earlier, a lot of young people think, now I've finished school. Whilst I'm in school, I'm concentrating on school. And then when I finish, I find that dream job. So first of all, that dream job doesn't just land in your lap. And it's whilst you are in school that you have your vacations. If you are fortunate enough, and I'm saying this again to many of those young people you said sent those questions. If you are fortunate enough to have access to a device where you can send these kinds of questions, you probably live somewhere where you are being fed, hopefully, and housed by somebody. So long as you have that, when you are in school during your vacations, even if it is not your vacations, you can find an internship to do. You can volunteer with student organizations, other things. All those are things that, like Paul said, you can put on your CV later on. You can work in your mom's shop, and you pick up all of those skills. So don't be in school and think that you are just concentrating on your school. Do other things as well. In fact, a lot of companies and employers nowadays shy away from even employing people who have first classes. Because what they say is that a lot of people who have first classes are so, in quotes, book long. All they care about is about making the grades without applying themselves in other things. So number one, do as much as you can outside your schoolwork whilst you are in school. Keep your grades up, but get those other skills. Because you know, if even whilst you are doing those other things, that you might meet people, you make connections and all that. And those are very important. Number two, what I'll say is that whatever you find yourself doing, and this comes from the Bible, it says whatever you find yourself doing, do it with all your heart. And the Bible continues to say, as working for the Lord and not for men. But don't think of any job as being too small. I think that in this I would say any job is a better job. A better job because it is the principles you apply to that job. It's the way you go about doing that job. That one will give you satisfaction to know you are doing a job well. Will let people notice you and will put you in a position for another opportunity later on. And the third and last is that don't just think about formal employment or be employed by somebody. If it's a small thing that you can do for yourself, a small side gig, like Samson said, do it. Because little by little, things grow and they build up.
Okay, thank you.
Ethel, can I add something
Yes,
to it?
you can.
So what I want to say is, I know I spoke about dream job, dream life, whatever. But what I want to say is that at every level in your life, what your dream job is or what your dream desire is changes. It's never constant. It's never constant. In, let's say 5 years, you might say my dream job is to be the senior business solution person of Just One Group. When you get to that 5 years, your dream job will be different because you'll be looking at, you would have evolved as a person, and so your interest, the conditions of life and everything would change. So every job is literally a great job. The plumber, so long as he's able to do what he wants to do, is happy and content, right? It doesn't mean the person is not having a dream job.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm glad we're talking about all this, and I believe the young people out there who are watching us live, and then those who will watch later, you are noting all this advice or things that we are talking about in terms of preparing yourself to work in the future. Because of COVID-19, I know the universities, most of them are not in session at the moment. And I've been interacting with a lot of young people. There are some that I realized that when they check their digital well-being, they spend about 12 hours a day on their phone. And if we go back to do a deeper, and it's not only the university students or other people who are home, even all of us. There are times you check your digital well-being, and from here maybe you would want to check to see what you use your time for on your phone. There are some that you realize that, so when we take 7 days in a week, I'm spending about 3 days on my phone. You'll be alarmed. And when you check, you realize that, okay, you're on social media, but what are you doing online? How are you using technology? Because at times now we've talked about preparing yourself before you even transition from school to work. And we've talked about the fact that you can also have access to this open resource knowledge centers online where you can self-teach, you can be self-taught on a lot of things, you can build knowledge. So those of the young people at home, because of coronavirus, you are not going to school. It doesn't mean holiday and watching movies and sleeping. It's actually a good time to relax and to learn a lot of things online. So when we go back and say, so what did you use that 8 months whilst you were at home? And it will surprise you, most people will not be able to account for what that time for. And it's part of building your CV. What Paul said, I find it very interesting. He said that when you start the job or right after school, you build your worth. So if you're a young person and you go to your first job or you go to places and you realize, okay, people are driving nice cars, people are paid huge salaries. It is because they used a long period of time to build their worth. And that is why it can get to a point when we say there are no jobs, but some people are always getting jobs. There are no jobs, but for some people, they are approached most of the time and they have enough opportunity to even say, I don't want this job, I want that job. But we are living in the same economy. And it is because such people have invested in themselves. Such people have taken a long time to build their worth over a period of time. And so it's good to dream, it's good to have a very big dream, but you have to be very intentional about working towards it and then give yourself some time. Would like to cross over to take some questions from our in-house participants and then also from our participants online. So if we have any questions from our in-house participants, kindly raise your hand. We call you. When you are called, please briefly introduce yourself and tell us where you come in from and keep your question brief and straight to the point. Thank you.
Questions and contributions as well. If you also want to, contribute to whatever be the conversation, kindly do so. I think Adam has one that he wants. Okay, so you introduce yourself and then you go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Adam Agbe. I work with Participatory Development Associates. I have two questions for the panelists. One of them is the conversation seems to be tilting more towards young people who are educated. How can young people who are out of school in the informal or those who have found themselves even in the formal spaces actually prepare for the future of work, and how can they position themselves? My second one is there is this trending phenomenon where it seems being an entrepreneur is the thing, right? So it's like every young person, you must be an entrepreneur, or you must, and is it a drive that everybody must follow? Or as young people, how do you identify that you should be an entrepreneur, or you should work for somebody, or some are developers, some are implementers of what has been developed, and some work in a team to get the job done. There is that chain, but it's like every young person wants to be an entrepreneur, founder or co-founder, right? How can young people identify where they belong in that chain?
Okay, I think I also have a few contributions and questions I want to ask. I mean, first of all, does anybody else want to, or I can come in and anybody else that also has it? Okay, so just to dovetail from where Adam left off, I came across a research some time back about necessity and then opportunity entrepreneurship. And I mean, the former is driven basically by lack of job opportunities or adequate job opportunities for the skill set of those that are coming out of school. And then the latter is mainly for those that have adequate skill sets. They've identified a niche or some particular window where they know that there's a market available that they can take advantage of and then produce to supply within that. So I mean, where I'm hoping that the panelists can actually come in strongly for me is how we can build strongly on the latter. That's the opportunity entrepreneurship, because it looks like, I mean, and even from my own research so far is that that's the most lucrative, and then that's actually the kind of entrepreneurship that can drive general development forward, because for most of the necessity entrepreneurs, they fall out within a year or two and then they're back to looking for jobs again generally. My other contribution also has to do with the issue of I'll focus on students who are also in school now and thinking of building their skills while coming out. I've been telling people that for me, one of my most impactful experiences when I was doing my undergraduate study was being part of the debate society in KNUST. That helped me a lot because we were running the British parliamentary debate and you have just 15 minutes to prepare when the motion is released, no access to electronic gadgets whatsoever. It teaches you how to think on your feet, and then you need to be somebody who's well researched and broadly read outside of those debate circumstances. And I realized that as I moved forward in life, most of the people that I kept engaging with were quite interested in that particular aspect of my life, including employers as well. And then while you go forward, and I interact with many of my mates who were part of the debate society, and I think Samson himself can attest to it, because at the point I was at the UDS helping them train when I was a national debate trainer at some point in time. And some of these skills are really very useful. People who have joined writing societies, and even those who participated in student politics, as Doug herself was trying to mention. So those are some good things we can talk about. Now, I want to make a contribution on the job learning. In my few years working, I've realized that on-the-job learning is easily facilitated when you are in a work environment with a lot of people around you. So anytime you're struggling with something, you can easily consult somebody who's sitting right next to you, especially if you have a room where there's quite a number of people, or you can easily knock on your boss's office if there's an open door and then have that conversation with him. Now, moving forward, we know that largely, whether we like it or not, the future of work for most companies will be digital. How can this kind of learning still be facilitated for most people who will be working remotely? And the reason I ask this is because it's a lot more difficult when you are on your own to have that enthusiasm to want to be seeking help from people. And it's not easy sometimes to just, even when you Google a thing and then you find resources online, some of those things are not easily comprehensible as if somebody was sitting next to you trying to explain some of those things to you. So another thing I'd like the panelists to touch on, and at least try to expand on for us, is how this on-the-job learning can be facilitated while working remotely. So these are my two contributions that I want to make. Is there any other issue that wants to come?
We will pause here and then respond to them.
And then we come
back to
Okay, at least so that we don't overwhelm
we don't miss any
Okay, that sounds good. So we take up on the two of Adam's questions that he asked and mine as well, and then we can move forward. All right, thank you.
People should write their questions so they don't forget.
Yes. Kindly write your questions down. And then for those of you who are watching from Facebook and on YouTube, kindly bring to ask. The panelists are here, they will engage in all of them for you, and then the participants as well can also contribute. And then if you have answers to any of the questions that have been raised, please feel free to comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Zion. So everyone talked about preparing out-of-school youth for the future, because it looks like we focus more of the young people in school. So, and then also whether entrepreneurship drive, whether it's for everyone, or everyone that has to follow that, or other people may find other rules that they could also do, within that scope. And then I think lastly, there was another one too on the job learning and how we can facilitate that, especially when it has to be remotely done. Yeah, so I don't know which one you would want to take first. There's one on out of school, young people.
I will take out of school.
Okay.
Also, I think we have a saying that can say, those who have not found themselves in school, basically, ideally have found something doing day by day. For survivor, again. Now, the thing is like, if you find yourself in that situation, what do you do to get to the next level? That's the next key I think I would like to really address a bit, taking it from where Adam really started from. So because people must survive, we have to eat, we have responsibility. So those who do not have formal education usually will find something doing, whether apprenticeship, missionary, like some of the core goals that you guys are driving at PDA. by day, wala tu wala sa, as we know locally or whatever. But the question is, can I survive that one for some time or when I'm aged? That's one question that people forget to ask themselves, and they depend on their current energy and exhaust to extent that they cannot do anything, and then at last they become disappointed. So, to those who are not actually in any formal education or any special skills, my message is that you have to look beyond what you're doing now. And then you keep asking yourself, if all the things I'm doing depends on my shoulder and I lose my arm, what can I do? Then it gives you the kind of attention on what to do next. So I think it's a small message I'll share, that whatever you find yourself or wherever you find yourself, find alternatives on what can keep you if you are no longer able to do one or the other. Then as you ponder over, you'll be able to find yourself in a decent job as we all expecting to do, by way of learning a trade or finding yourself in a distance education or any course to get to the next level, as whatever your capacity can be able to afford you. And I believe if you make an effort, you will have help by the way. That's what I'll put.
All right, thank you.
I want to add to what he said on that question. So I was thinking about a couple of scenarios, right? So one of them is, the truth is, people in informal sector, they have a financial burden that what they do is not able to even, address, right? So is it possible, and I don't know if I'm being a devil's advocate here, but is it possible to say that maybe government needs to really look at its priorities around the workforce development in the sense that there are a number of foresight reports that indicate where, we are heading towards, what kind of jobs we are heading towards, and what is required for us to be able to upskill people. Is it possible for government to start investing now, right? Or let me say before investment, is it possible for government, together with the people, to set up a roadmap for itself for 20 years from now? I'm not talking about development plan, right? I'm talking about the human development plan, because we all need to understand that the fourth industrial revolution, the fifth industrial revolution, and all the other revolutions that will come, they are not going to wait for us. Literally, they are not waiting for us to become developed before we become partakers. So the first thing we need to do is to come up with a roadmap for ourselves in terms of human capital development. Then the next thing, after we have that roadmap, is to start thinking about the financial instruments we need to be able to power that roadmap. Okay? Then we start thinking, what are the details, the implementation details to this roadmap? So one solution is to come up with learning centers, right? Learning centers for the people, for the informal sector workers that would help them transition from, and as I said earlier, I don't like informal. So for those in the various economies to start upscaling themselves and start seeing how relevant they would be 20 years from now. So once we start prioritizing such investments and setting up these learning centers to upskill people, that is when we sort of charter a pathway for prosperity. So that 20 years from now, when some jobs do not exist, we don't have a huge unemployment rate. So I have a call that I want to make, and the call is to the Youth Sector Engagement Group. What I want to say is that perhaps maybe the group can start considering, right? What are the policy directions that we need to pursue around making sure that we sustain the, informal sector economy, in terms of the future of work 20 years from now. The World Economic Forum launched the Future of Work report, which they launch they outdoor every year. If you read that report, it's about 163 pages report. If you read that report, it goes into detail what kind of jobs will exist 5 years from now and what kind of skill sets we need. And the truth is, if you measure our capacity as a country, you realize that we are way behind. And if you take the African Union, they have a digital economy roadmap. There are a number of things that we are actually lacking in this economy, and we think that life is all easy and everything is fine. And we need to start thinking around these things. The sad thing is that if we don't start prioritizing this, and if we don't start taking these things very serious, take it 5 to 10 years from now, we would only have 10% of the total population working, right? And over 80% out of jobs. And then if care is not taken, because people might not have money to be able to adapt quickly, and we are very comfortable with where we are, and we don't want to even learn new skills because we feel like, oh, it's too hard to do. I have a kid, I have children, I have a husband to take care of, or I have a wife and a family, grandchildren, and all those things. These things will come, and life is always going to be hard. And life will throw so many challenges at us. But we need to start mastering the skill of learning and unlearning quickly and relearning, right? And so we can only do that when we have a right framework that really supports things like that. And people are actually doing it. Recently in the news, when the Okada people were, interviewed, one person was like, look, I finished secondary school, decided to do Okada so that I could save some money and go to the Polytechnic to do like a program. And for those who are not able to even come up with such interventions, what happens to them? So that's what I want to say.
All right, thank you, Santi. Tomorrow we'll be talking a lot more about preparing young people for tomorrow's job today. So we'll delve deeper into the issues of workforce development and social protection and issues like that tomorrow. All right. So there was another question, and I think now we've addressed the out-of-school youth. There was one on entrepreneurship drive, whether it's for everyone or the other things that young people can do too. And then I think the last is on the job training, especially on doing this remotely or facilitating learning on the job remotely, especially looking at our COVID-19 situation where we don't get to be in the office most of the time.
Okay, I think I'll take the third one.
Okay.
So, yes, I agree. On the job training, virtual learning is not something that we are used to, and even as a teacher myself, I still find a lot, there's and that human engagement that it's very, very, very difficult to get when you're doing things virtually. But nevertheless, if that is what you have to do, then you have to make the most of it. Fortunately, because of one, there's so much information online already, and there are so many free websites. There's Coursera, there's OpenCourseWare, there's so many free websites where you can learn so many things, so that even if there isn't someone you can ask those questions of, you can still. And then also, fortunately, there are a lot of video interfaces. So the Zoom, WhatsApp, chats and all those things, where you can simulate something like a face-to-face thing. And so what I'll say is that, yes, it's going to take a lot more for us to do all that we would have done in getting questions answered and all virtually. But it is not impossible. So let's not think that it's impossible. It will take a lot more thinking and innovation, but it is possible.
All right, thank you. We take our last question. What is that entrepreneurship drive? That everyone has to be a founder or a co-founder or the other things that people can do.
I think I'm going to try and take that. So I think so everybody can be an entrepreneur, right? But there are different types of entrepreneurship. We have entrepreneurs who exist within an organization, and we have entrepreneurs who go to do their own stuff and start like an organization. And I think that there's no like straight rule around which type you are, but sometimes people venture into it and they figure out that, okay, actually this is not my thing. And so I'd rather go work for someone. And I have been in that, at that point myself, where together with a friend, we started a company, and over a year down the line, I was like, actually, no, this is not my thing. I'd rather want to go back and work for someone and gather all the experience that I need to be able, because you don't actually start out like, and especially if you've not, I'm not saying this is a preserve of those who were born into families where like daddy and mommy is an entrepreneur by default, right? Naturally, you need to know what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Before you get to the point where you're like, I want to start a family business, I think Paul mentioned this, you need to have been able to receive some form of mentorship, understand the system that you're going to be leading or interacting with to be able to do that. But if you don't come from that place where information is passed on like that, or training is passed on like that, it becomes difficult. Zayan spoke about opportunity entrepreneurship and necessity entrepreneurship. I want us to look at it this way. Historically, we've had medium and micro businesses, like before you and I were born, most of us in this room. Tabletop businesses, kiosk businesses, container businesses. These are all types of what I'll call necessity stroke opportunity entrepreneurship, right? And the only reason why today we see a lot more of necessity entrepreneurs is because entrepreneurship has become a much more popular thing than it was in the past. One of my friends once said something. She said, you know, Samson, Africans invented everything, right? But the white man packaged it for us. So take, for instance, circular economy, entrepreneurship. Like, we've always had entrepreneurship. We've always had the gig economy. We've always had everything. But because we've not been able to define it, someone else defines it for us, ships off the concept to us, and we now have to come and study something that we have in our DNA, which is a huge problem, right? So we need to start thinking about like going back to our roots and acknowledging these things exist, right? And none of, whether necessity or opportunity, none is bad. It's just a matter of like knowing that you don't have to stick to this forever. You need to be open to evolving as a person. You might start out as an opportunity entrepreneur, but you would realize that after failing several times, there's a necessity that you want to address. And then you are able to transition and transfer those skills obtained from opportunity entrepreneurship into necessity entrepreneurship. So I think we should look at it beyond just what the definitions are, and also start thinking that I can be an entrepreneur in someone's business. And in that case, I become an entrepreneur instead of like an entrepreneur. So those are the things that we need to start thinking about. And once we start thinking, like giving it a very deep thought and applying our creative thinking skills, we'll be able to make headway.
All right. What do you want to add?
Yes, I think, I'll first of all pick the entrepreneurship kind of. Now, I think the whole universe came to being by human being. Our involvement became like, came to being as entrepreneurship, right? God created Adam and Eve, and then they had to start something by themselves. They were not employed by anything. The creatures, they were created to just subdue whatever creation that God made. And that's how it started. But now, as time goes on, a time came, I think, few people were in the offices. Maybe offices were not even in existence. But as things changes, many things evolve. Someone is in business because all that the person provides is a chair for somebody to sit on comfortably, which is defined for people who have been in offices. Maybe certain chairs like this for people who be in conference rooms like what we're having now. Someone is in business because it's providing a solution for you to be in an enclosed environment that you still feel comfortable, like the air-conditioned lights and what have you, and our media systems that we're having. So now, we all have something to solve one way or the other. But then, before you stick your neck, you need to find out if the thing exists. Find out from the root how the thing came to be, how they have been able to sustain it up to now. If it's something that you are inventing from scratch, as a solution you see, now the next thing is, how can you do it? You have to do all this analysis and make sure that the risk that you have to take, the first thing you have to, because you cannot still invest in something and still live the normal life as you have. So these are the sacrifices we have to test ourselves and see whether we'll be able to accommodate that before we stick our neck. Now, that's a bit that I'll add to Samson's own, because he has given us a whole lot of information about the inter and then extra. Whether you can be entrepreneur within or outside. So that's a key thing. So the risk that we are going to experience and then what we can sacrifice is what we need to really factor before we come. Otherwise, we will fail along the way, because the world is coming up speedily. Whatever you're thinking, someone is doing it. Whatever you're doing, someone is doing it better. So what can you do to stay in business? It's up to you to decide whether you fit for the market or not. Then, now, when it comes to the online advantage that we have currently in terms of learning, there are a whole lot of information all over that you can access. But not all information are suitable for your environment. So we need to, first of all, evaluate any information that we access. And if we have online information like learning tools and stuff like that, if it can work, compare first and see the one that you can really trust. And if you take one or two or three locally or whatever it is, then there may be certain things that will cut across both. Then you know whether you are in a trend, because the way the information is flowing, you cannot rely on just one information to really have an impact on yourself. So we need to evaluate any information we can across.
All right, thank you, Paul. So if you are a young person and entrepreneurship is for you, and you want to learn a lot more about that, we had somewhere, I think in May, we had conversations on starting your own business and even managing your business within this COVID-19 and post-COVID era. You can find that conversation on the PDA TV on YouTube, and also on PDA's Facebook page. You can look for PDA Ghana and like our page, and then you can have access to these resources. Yeah. So we'll take our last round of questions from Zion.
Okay. So briefly, your name and then your question.
My name is Prince Chepeche. Please, I have read that some jobs are never advertised, and I would like to know the reason why they are never advertised, and then if then, how can we find them?
Okay, so your name and then.
Thank you very much. My name is Isaac Debarosai. On the soft skills bit, my father used to operate restaurants in the Eastern region. So anytime I'm on vacation, I help him. And anytime I serve customers, I get tip. But other workers do not get tip. And he asked me why. And I told him it's a strategy. It's just the human relations and the customer service. Back to my national service days, I spoke with a managing director. I handled a phone call. And he said, "Who are you? What is your name? Can I see you?" I thought I was going to get a job after that because I handled the phone call so well. And I really wanted to be maintained because I saw my supervisor's salary. It was huge. I wasn't retained anyway. And I found myself in a construction firm as a storekeeper. As a storekeeper, I used to work with the laborers as well to know what they were also doing. So I identified myself with some PVC pipes, how to do the steel bending, and then how to fix some PVC pipes. It was actually a better job, I would say. And then I found myself in another company that you work from 7 a.m. to 11 to 12 a.m., 11 p.m. or to 12 a.m. in the morning, and then you come back home and you prepare for the following, Then my mom told me, Kwame, oh, how bread, oh, so correct, but I needed the money. So in this case, will you say that was it a better job for me? In as much as I needed the money, and as compared to how I was getting lost, Will you say it's a better job?
I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I would address that later.
All right. Are there any others from here? If not, I just want to read a comment from Facebook. This is from Samuel Nayang. He says, I find it difficult to understand people who keep saying, quote, there is no job. The problem is a lot of young people are not ready to challenge themselves, but they want jobs occupied by people who have gone through the mill for years to get to the current position at the top. The youth have to learn to take advantage of the small opportunities around and allow time to grow. No job is really bad, it's how you're making it. And that comes to the issue that most of the panelists have been touching on so far. Over to you, Ethel.
Okay.
Oh, okay, one more.
Okay, my name is Wilhelmina, and I wanted to add to the contribution about is any job a better job. I think that we have this kind of colonial mentality that about this white-collar jobs, and this job is better than this job. Back when I was doing my undergrad, I had a friend who thought that right after first degree, he's going to get a job and she's going to make it like, if she's paid, she had even a wage average that she wanted after first degree. So after we completed, she didn't get any job after national service. Oh. And then later, after like some time, now she started thinking about how to survive. And when survival comes in, and people now start thinking about ways to earn. And I see that on her social media handles, she started selling things to like find her path in life. So I think that one way that we can get to appreciate that every job is a better job for you, that depending on however you go about it, is that you have to take out this whole colonial mentality that about the divides, informal and formal sector. So if you come out of these divides, because I feel like there's an article I read, the formal and informal sometimes even merge. So you just have to come out of this whole mentality that this is formal, this is informal, and then you find your path in life. Yeah.
Just to touch on that briefly, I also read something that said that especially in Ghana, businesses aren't strictly formal or informal just because it's fluid. At the time when you know that being formal will suit you in getting government benefits and so on and so forth, you quickly get your documents in order and rush through all of those things. But at times when you know that it will not suit you to be as formal as possible, you try to meander your way through the system. Over to you, Ethel.
Okay. So we have a question about jobs that are not advertised. How do we find those jobs, right? Was that the question? Yes.
Oh, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can go ahead. And then.
I want to share an experience because I manage an organization, and then we recruit a lot.
Yeah.
But we hardly advertise positions.
So it's true that some jobs are not advertised.
We hardly advertise positions. We have our own systems of recruiting. And not that it is not competitive. It is very competitive. But we will not put it in the papers. Because if it's when you are doing something that you get the opportunity to do something. So we either use networks of the organization or lecturers. Talk to lecturers. We are looking for this position. Can you give us some of your best students? They will give us a list, and will take their contacts and send them the job description before they come for interview or through internships. And so we also don't really advertise our internship positions, but we don't take interns also for internship's sake. If you don't have a job description as an intern, we will not take you, because that means that we really don't have anything to do. And by the time you finish that process, okay, your supervisor, your managers regularly they are meeting to be assessing you. By the time the process is complete, your supervisor can recommend you for employment or not, then we employ. So we don't advertise, but we do employ competitively actually. So that is why it's important to do work or do other things, because you can easily be identified in them.
Yeah, and to pick up from what Adam is saying, not necessarily doing what the role that perhaps you might be feeling is, right? So let's say if they are looking for like an advocacy specialist, right? You don't necessarily have to be doing what an advocacy specialist is supposed to be doing. You might be doing radio, right? Or you might be doing TV and you're involved in some research with a research firm or something, and maybe that person leading that firm might be the person, you know, they might be contacted, and the person will be like, oh, I have this person who has this experience, you know, but is not, you know, a student of mine, but I can actually suggest that, you know, you hire this person and that's it. What I actually wanted to add is that some positions are first filled internally, right? So before a job is posted externally, they first look for internal candidates. If they don't find, in some places, in some positions, if they don't find a suitable candidate internally, that's when they will come and advertise externally. Then there are others that are contracted to recruiters. So for instance, you would be on LinkedIn and you might think, okay, well, some jobs are not advertised. Yes, sometimes the medium of advertisement is restricted. So they will tell you that, okay, we are looking to fill this very important position. We are not going to advertise because we don't just want, you know, anybody applying. So we are hiring you as a recruiter to headhunt for people to fill that position. So you also need to be very strategic. And I think depending on the level of your career, you might find yourself in any of these circumstances.
All right, thank you, Samson.
Yeah.
The HR specialist.
Let Doc come in.
Okay. If you answer the same question, I was answering Kwame's question about his mom.
Okay.
So, is it this question you're going to?
I'm just stopping now.
Yeah, so you talk about
Okay, so about these jobs, usually there are cost elements in recruitment.
Yeah.
Sometimes the kind of specialization that you're looking for, work referral. Now another thing is like, because you want, because something like job exigency, we're having emergencies at hospitals and other places, but now it's coming to jobs because of competition. We no longer have patience to train people currently for certain roles because of how we need to catch up with business. So now we may need somebody from a certain organization. I know that I'm into this production and this company does. I may know one other person or two. Do you have somebody who can help me from your organization? I need somebody from the field because I know that is what we do similarly. And what the person comes to do will complement what I do. So these are some of the dynamics. Apart from the cost element, we do referrals. Who do you know who can be able to best fit for this, the specification we are looking at for? So that is why we don't see them. So usually, try as much as possible. If you are looking for a job, you are a hunter. If you take your gun to the forest and you want to come empty-handed, let's just say, Esewara. I normally go for interviews whilst I'm not ready for the jobs. And usually every year I go like 4, 3 or more. I sometimes travel and I just want to experience. It makes you better too. And you know, the funny thing is like, I don't even know when I apply for the job, but I'm called. So put your information, make it relevant to what you know is your key area of experience, and that will really put you on the limelight. So that's what I can say about it.
Thank you. Now, Kwame's question.
Okay, so to respond to Kwame very briefly. So I believe that there are different stages of everybody's life. And if you are young and you are in your teens or your 20s, you can sleep 3 hours a night and do that work that we are doing, and it's absolutely fine. If you remember from the video that we watched at the beginning, what Lois said, and Lois actually happens to be a former student of mine.
Oh.
So what she said is that she knows she's a woman, and it's true, there are a lot of cultural things that go against women in our society. And she's young right now, she doesn't have any family commitments, so she can do what she's doing. She can go out and do the interviewing herself and all that. But there's a point when she believes that she will have to adapt and transition.
Yeah.
And it's the same for you. So, yes, your mom might have been thinking about a poor baby who is only home 6 hours a day. But if at that time, the skills that you were learning, the things that you were gaining from the job were useful and they helped to build you, then it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. So our conversation is getting interesting, but we are mindful of time and we have to bring it to an end. So I will take the closing remarks, or I will take the take of the panelists. Let's say something brief, looking at all that we have discussed today. How can young people secure decent employment now and in future? Something brief, and then we'll bring this conversation to an end. I don't know who will start from, this way or that way.
Let's start from
We'll
me.
start from four.
Yes, so we've mentioned a lot of things to your ears. We've all have not come by what we are having now easily. It didn't come by easily. I remember there are some jobs that I did. It has to do with some marketing field, stuff like that. All that you'll be giving is your money to go to one place or the other. And because they are scheduled and need to come with their report, you have to go. Now when you go and come back, the money is finished sometimes. You have to calculate where to walk to continue. There are some other jobs that I've done that I wasn't paid at the end of the day. I need to find another job. So as we strive for the best, as we stick your neck into something, it's not everything that you get it easily. Now, we cited a lot of examples about what you need to succeed, but it may not apply to everybody. There are some of you who will just finish school and the national service that you go and serve will end up in a good job where you sweat not at all. And it doesn't matter whether you did attachment or whatever it is. But what if it doesn't happen that way? So, there are a lot of challenges that I now have to come. Each step, like every step and each stage. If you are in school, we all want to sleep. We all feel dizzy. We all feel sick about reading. We all don't want to. But in the night, you might be only the person who is sleeping. You know, all others are going through the same thing. But you are the one who have chosen to sleep. In that case, you are the loser. You know, it comes to a point like there are certain comparing situations. You feel pain not to even wake up to go to work. But it might happen to everybody. If you don't go, you are the only loser because you are the one who could not really get up to face that challenge. So now, the opportunity is now. You might have it in your hands. Don't joke with it. You are expecting to have it. Work towards it. And as we strive, we'll get there. So that's what I can put.
All right. Thank you, Paul. And we'll definitely get there. We'll move to Dr. Jojo.
Okay, so I'll just add briefly to what Paul has said. To say that do not be discouraged. At the end of the day, it is rare. Very few people start out with a plan for their lives and end up having everything go according to plan. So don't be discouraged if you had a dream and that dream doesn't seem to be coming into fruition. Do your very best wherever you find yourself. Wherever it is you find yourself, just make sure that you are learning and gaining opportunities and learning skills that are useful. It doesn't need to be in line directly with what it is you are doing. Do your best, learn those useful skills. And you end up somewhere where you find that it is your dream job after all. It might not be the dream you had, but it's a dream job.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Dodo. Samson.
So I would say that please do not compromise on your mental health and well-being. In as much as you want to make money, in as much as you want to have that dream house and dream car and dream job, please make sure that you do not do so at the expense of your well-being and your mental health. Because once you trade these two things for money, you've lost life. You wouldn't find life meaningful in any way. The second thing I actually wanted to also add is that please don't also be in a haste to become popular. We live in a time where we want to be known as experts when we don't have any expertise. We live in a time where we want to be popular. We live in a time where we want to appear on TV screens, on panels, and to look like we know what we are talking about. Please take your time, be humble, work hard, build your capacity, build your experience, build your knowledge, and at the right time, the right things will chase after you. The other and the last thing I also want to say is that start reading on foresight reports that are talking about the future. Reports that are proposing what the trends would be 20 years from now. And start seeing yourself in those trends and defining for yourself what kind of future you would want. Because if you start looking ahead and defining for yourself what kind of future you would want, most likely when that future happens, you might not necessarily be where you are, but you'll be close to the point where you actually saw yourself right from the beginning.
All right, so we've had a very interesting session, starting with our video documentary about the future of work for young people, where we had young people sharing their hopes and fears with us. We also have talked about the career journey of our panelists, and from their stories, we realized that each of them began somewhere and gradually moved to where they are at the moment. So it always starts somewhere and it gets to a place. The one thing from the conversations that we have had, I believe we've all learned, is that it's good to dream. And we will even encourage every young person to dream, and to dream very big about the future, as to what he or she wants to do, the kind of family you want to have, the kind of jobs you want to do in future. But as you dream about those jobs, work towards it. Be intentional. Start asking questions about how you will get to that place. And when you've had the opportunity to go work with people, your first job and all that, don't be too quick to get to the position where your boss is. It takes time to get there. As we have learned today, you have to build your worth to a certain level, and it comes with all those privileges and advantages that we will see. It's attractive, it's nice, but it doesn't happen overnight. So we encourage you to rather talk to these people who have made it, or those people who are people that we look up to as our mentors, or the roles that they occupy that we want to reach there. Talk to them, and they will share with you how they journeyed and how they got there. So as we bring this conversation to an end, we would also want to encourage you to join us tomorrow at 10 o'clock GMT for us to continue our conversation. Tomorrow we'll be talking about preparing young people for tomorrow's job today. We will talk about other issues that came up today. We will continue. So please do make time to join us. And we are grateful. As I said earlier, this program is brought to you by the Youth Forward Learning Partnership, which is led by Overseas Development Institutes in the UK, Participatory Development Associates in Ghana, and Development Research Training in Uganda, and is sponsored by the MasterCard Foundation. Thank you, and do have a good day.
Thank you very much, Etta, for such a wonderful panel discussion and for wrapping everything up. You've touched on every single one of the issues that they've discussed, and I'm hoping that we can continue to go deeper into this conversation tomorrow. Thank you for those that join us online. We hope that you'll be able to join us tomorrow as well, and keep your comments and your questions coming in as well. For those that are here, I think lunch is ready. When you exit the auditorium, you take a right. Lunch is served somewhere down the hall. Thank you very much once again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye. Thank you.